everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is New Dawn TC Solutions. I'm Monica Dillon, and today we have an incredible guest. We have Jamie Hallman. She's CEO of Consider It Closed, and she's an expert in the real estate transaction coordination industry. She's not only a powerhouse in the TC industry, but also she's the author of The Expectation Gap. Change your expectations to transform your relationships. So today we're going to dive into her journey into TCing and how expectations may shape our success in real estate and our personal connections. And so here we are. Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
It's an honor for me as well. So, just a little background about myself. I've been in real estate for years. I was in mortgage banking on that side for actually 30 years. And a little bit of accounting was in those years as well. And then I got into investing. So I'm a real estate investor. I did a little bit of that while I lived in Atlanta. And I also have an Airbnb business. But I find that I fell into the transaction coordination industry because that's just where my biggest comfort is. That's where my light shines in that world. And so I'm loving it so far. I've launched my business and I'm loving making connections such as this. So let's get into it. Jamie, can we just talk a little bit about your background and your journey into the TC business?
Yeah, sure thing. So I feel like most people in real estate, there's not always a straight path into the industry. We come from all kind of different backgrounds. And so for me, I used to be in healthcare as a registered dietitian. That's what I went to school for. That was the plan, that was the career. And, I'll save you the long story, but I went overseas for a missions trip for a year and it
Wow.
changed a lot about my life. It just kind of changed my priorities and I came back and reassessed things. And so, long story short, my husband and I moved to Florida and I got into real estate and thought I would originally be a realtor and, serve as an
Wow.
agent. And then I quickly realized when I got in further, I realized that my giftings and skills were a lot more in alignment with the transaction coordination side. Each personality type has their fit and their role. I loved real estate. I was definitely, it appealed to me, the fast pace of it and how there's pretty much always a solution and you can help people. But I just didn't love the agent role for me. I like structure, I like predictability. So I found out about transaction coordination that way and then worked with a team and kind of grew from there.
That's amazing. And I can concur on eventually you find what works for your personality and your giftings, and then you find that sweet spot. And so that's great that you found it. So let's
Yeah.
talk about some potential struggles, or maybe let's talk about how you came to grow your business. Like, what was that journey looking like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think anyone that owns a business know that there's always struggles. And real estate alone, I think it's hard because real estate is it's not predictable. It's constantly changing. There's always going to be seasons of up and down and changes and potential problems. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's what keeps it really interesting and it keeps it fun and it keeps your day to day. You can't ever quite predict what your day is going to look like, which is the part I like about it. But I think the struggle part could be if you are not able to adapt. So I think being a business owner and being in real estate, both of them require that you have to have a certain level of flexibility, adaptability. You have to be able to adjust when the markets change and shift because they're going to always. And so I think just being willing to think outside the box, stay creative, and be shifting with the market instead of just reacting to it.
That is the best advice I tell you because it's almost like in when you start a business, and I'll just speak for myself, when I started all of the businesses that I dealt with, it was like it was me, like I'm growing me. You are your business, and so you have to shift mindsets. You have to shift what you used to know and form it to what it needs to be so that you can be successful. And so, Jamie, I would like to segue and get into giftings because part of your giftings is you are an author. And
I
so let's get
am.
into a little bit about your book,
Yeah.
The Expectation Gap, Transforming Relationships by Shifting Expectations. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, funny story, I actually started writing The Expectation Gap. It was just a personal passion project of mine. It was not, nor is it, me trying to be a career author or change my career, anything like that. It was just something I was really passionate about putting the message out there. And I started writing it almost right at the same time I started this business. And so,
Wow.
as you can imagine, starting a business, because it takes so much time at the beginning when you're getting your systems in place and marketing and trying to get out there. And I quickly realized, like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do both well. So I took a pause. I had started it. I took like a couple months pause, and then again I realized, okay, if you don't start it again at some point, it's just going to keep getting pushed back. So I literally just allotted like so many time blocks, especially on the weekends, where I sat down and I wrote, and I just did that alongside the business. And so it took several months to get it done, but yeah, it was just something important to me about just relationships and healthy relationships and communication. And it's not about real estate, so it has nothing to do with my business. But at the same time, a lot of the concepts that I wrote about in the book are the very things that help me be a successful business owner, which is your communications and expectation setting with clients, with your team members, with all of the people you encounter on the other side of real estate transactions. It kind of came full circle of how we communicate to people and how we adjust and set expectations for them and they for us. It has a lot to do with the level of health and level of maturity, and I think just contentment that we face.
That is so true. All of that, because we're all different. And then so we come from these different, basically, ethnicities and
Mhm.
backgrounds. And so, but we come together on a common ground, like we're trying to achieve, certain goals. But sometimes you have to adjust because we're just different. We're all fearfully and wonderfully made. So we do have to
Yes.
set expectations. I feel like that's huge.
Yeah,
Very.
especially in real estate where, depending on where you service real estate, it can be a small world sometimes. You're going to work with a lot of the same lenders, the same title companies, some of the same co-op agents. And so I think that's something too I learned early on is treating everyone with kindness and professionalism, even if maybe the person on the other end isn't reacting the same way. It's, hey, we are all, like you said, we are all in this together. We all want the same outcome. We all want this to successfully close. We want to see everybody
Absolutely.
happy. And so if nothing else, we can align on that commonality.
I love it. I love it. And so with your TC business, what are some of the big things that you would maybe advise, maybe an aspiring TC person, someone, they've heard about transaction coordination and they think they might be a good fit, but there may not be enough information out there about, what we do. I know that it's kind of a special, not well known niche that we do, but it's so needed. It's so important. What are a couple of things that you might advise an aspiring TC person?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I mean, honestly, first and foremost, before you even dive into TC work, I say assess your own personality, because I think there are a lot of people that hear some of the perks and advantages of being a transaction coordinator, like flexible schedule in terms of you can work from home, you can work out of your laptop. And so I think a lot of people that appeals to them, but they don't ever stop and assess if it actually is something they will find fulfilling. And so for transaction coordination, where it is so detailed and you do spend a lot of time in front of the computer, sending out a lot of emails. I'm kind of in front of my computer all day long. So you have to be someone who, yes, for sure enjoys talking to people and working with people, but you kind of have to be someone who's okay being alone and behind the scenes and doing those detailed organized steps. So like if you don't like spreadsheets and you don't like organization, you don't like emails, you're probably not going to enjoy this line of work. And so I think just knowing your giftings, and knowing if that is something that either brings you life or does it, drain your energy. Because there's a lot of people who are, super high extroverts and they love being around people. And while some of them can be great TCs, I know there's a lot of them that the day to day sitting in front of a computer by themselves, like it saps their energy. And so I think just being honest about, what the role entails and does that fit with kind of what you want out of your career. And then, assuming you're like, yes, this is definitely something I want to pursue. I think what I see a lot lately is people hopping into the business with not, which no one's going to have experience when you're new, right? That's why you're new. But I think it's making sure you do take the steps, because unfortunately there's not like an official certification, or there's not like an official coursework or something you can take for it. So I think making sure you are either educating yourself on the role and the different steps of the real estate process. And you can do that by working under a team. You can even be independent and just say, hey, work with an agent or two and just be really honest and transparent. Like, hey, I'm newer to the industry. I'm wanting to learn. Are you willing to guide me through a couple of transactions? Whatever that may look like. You could get a mentor. You could work under a company. But I think getting that initial background and experience in what you're doing, or like I said, at least being transparent about the fact of where your level of experience is. Because I think one of the things that can harm our industry is when people promote themselves as expert of the contracts and the documents and transaction coordination, and then they're getting out there and a lot of mistakes and issues and things are getting overlooked. And not only is it going to cost them their clients and their business, but then the people they work with are going to assume, they're going to kind of extrapolate that to all transaction coordinators. So I think just really educating yourself, getting some experience, however that looks like for you, so that you can grow in your level of confidence of the contracts and the process and the different parties involved.
That is wonderful advice that you just gave, because there is a level of, hey, I can do this. Let me do work for you. Let me give you my services. But you got to make sure that you've prepared yourself so that you can properly serve. I know for me, that was a big important thing. Make sure you're ready to serve. So there's a level of getting those systems in place, especially, and getting the education and making sure, even though you might have a knowledge of something, no, you need to make sure that you're getting prepared to do a great job and retain clients and make the money. And for me, it's all about serving. The money, yes, is a byproduct. I do need to make money, but I feel like that's kind of a byproduct of just operating in my gifting. And so, wow, this has been a great conversation. I enjoyed my time with you today. Everyone, I just would ask that you like and share my page, Nudes on TC Solutions, to get more information such as this, where we're giving out TC tips and also giving you information for that industry. And also, I would like Jamie to go ahead and give her social media handles. And also, Jamie, how can we get your book?
Oh yeah, sure thing. So you can connect with me. As far as the book, it's kind of easy. Just use my name, jamiehallman.com. There's a website. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Nobles. It's on all the major sites. But if you go to my website, it has a ton of links that'll send you there. And then, yeah, consider it closed. My company, same handle name. You can search me on pretty much everywhere, every channel. So that's probably the easiest way to connect.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time today, Jamie. We will go ahead and wrap up. I wish you much success in your business. Thank you for the standard that you are setting out here in the TC industry. I personally look up to you, and so I look forward to working with you again and us just building a great relationship. So that's our time, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and go ahead and again subscribe to my channel for more nuggets such as this. Thank you.